as we look at the doctrine of the Holy Spirit, I want us to say, first of all, that the Holy Spirit is the administrator of redemption, meaning it's the Holy Spirit that takes the cross of Jesus, and as we say yes to God, as we say yes to Him and no to our sin, as we admit who we are as sinners in need of grace, and say yes to God's act of redemption, it is the Holy Spirit that moves and places that act for real in our hearts. And we're so very grateful for that. The Holy Spirit is also the giver of gifts for ministry, the one who empowers us for ministry and does the work of ministry. I hope you know this truth deeply. There is nothing more freeing to be a minister of the gospel and to know the truth that God is the one who does the work. We are simply agents. I hope you know this truth deeply. And the Holy Spirit is the bearer of the fruit of holiness. He is the one who makes us holy. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And how wonderful it is to have those characteristics not only imputed to us, but also imparted to us. Now, what does that mean? It means that the Holy Spirit not only lays Jesus' righteousness over our lives, but He makes us righteous. Not perfectly. We're going to talk more about that in the next section. But nevertheless, the process is begun, and we're going to talk more about the instant and the process next week. But He's the one that does that. The gifts of the Spirit, Wesley stated, were not as much in operation, at least, if not totally not in operation, as Collins mentions on page 127. And I'll just have to tell you that I am in disagreement with that. Very rarely do I disagree with Wesley, but this is one place that I do, at least as Collins understands him. Nevertheless, I would contend with Wesley and with Collins that the fruit of the Spirit is primary. There is no one sign gift in the Wesleyan theology. We believe in the Holy Spirit, we believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, we believe in the gifts of the Spirit, and yet there is not a sign gift. There is the indirect witness, and there is the direct witness. And we're going to talk about that twofold. One in terms of what the Holy Spirit does for us in sanctifying us, but also what the Holy Spirit does for us in assurance. The direct witness is where the Spirit talks to our spirit and says to us that we are children of God or that we have His gift within us. I'm combining both of these right now so we can talk about them at the same time. But Wesley understood sanctifying grace and the witness of sanctifying grace and the witness of justifying grace in exactly identical terms. That there was an indirect witness and a direct witness. The direct witness is the Holy Spirit saying to our spirit, I am a child of God. And indeed, I'm very grateful that I know that. And I trust that you are as well. The indirect witness is the work of the Holy Spirit that makes us different, and we can look back and say, yes, I am not the person who I would have been without God. In my family, that's very evident because we had one cousin who was following very similar paths to the rest of us and yet never accepted Jesus, never invited Him to his heart and life, as near as we know at least. And certainly his life did not have any of that indirect witness. And I can look back at his life, he's dead now, I can look back at his life and go, there but for the grace of God goes me. There but for what God has done in my heart, I go. And I suspect you can find things like that in your own life. So this is a different witness, a different assurance than comes out in other types of theology. one of our brothers and sisters will tell you that they have assurance of faith because God will never throw you out. And I agree, God will never throw you out. But we can walk away. And I believe Wesley would agree with that as well. We can walk away, though God will never throw us out. But we still can have that assurance, both directly and indirectly. Finally, I want to hopefully clear up a little bit about the Floki clause. This is where the early church first had its big church split. And we would split into the Eastern branch and the Western branch, the Orthodox churches and the Roman Catholic Church. And so what happened there? The Western Church, of which we as Protestants and as Methodists are a part, stated that the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son, whereas the Orthodox churches states that the Holy Spirit proceeds only from the Father. For me, it's a matter of how much is the Father in charge or how much is the Father equal in terms of Trinity. And that's my best way of understanding it. The Trinity is an equality, as well as a triunity, and as well as three persons in one substance. It's an equality. And because it's an equality, then the Holy Spirit, in my judgment, must proceed from both the Father and the Son. And indeed, almost proceeds from himself. Not quite, hear me very clearly, I'm not saying he proceeds from himself. I am saying that he must proceed from the Father and the Son if you're a believer in an equalitarian view of the Trinity.